And we're live, we're super live with the one and only Jacob Sinex. Welcome to the PAVELCAST.
Thanks for having me, Pavel.
Oh
Glad to
yeah,
be here.
pleasure. Let's see, let's tell people how we know each other. So I guess basically we're working at the same client doing consulting. We're at UC Health in Colorado. And like I saw your name pop around. I knew you were like also a Blue Tree consultant. I thought you were like a Boy Scout because you always like had answers and links and like well formatted emails and like this guy knows what he's doing. Who is he? And I knew you were ex Epic. That's all I really knew about it. And I think we never really crossed paths that much, not that I can think of.
No, we were both there. I mean, that was almost 6 years ago now. That's almost a long time ago.
It was a special time in my life because it was like a big life change. I started consulting for the first time. So it was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? That was fun.
Well, and I was just getting back into consulting after being in grad school for 3 or 4 years.
Got it. And then you eventually came onto like Blue Tree's like whatever internal solutions team, and we worked together. We built that team up. You had a heavy hand in that. I always say, right hand man. Designing proposals that I was like, I don't know how to do this. Can you just make it up? And you were really good at that. And then now you are actually leading that team. So that's great. That's awesome. Woo!
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Pavel.
Yeah.
You
But
described it perfectly.
so that's how we got to know each other as like a professional relationship. But then we kind of like developed a bit of a buddy like little buddy. I don't know if we're besties as like those Jason Calacanis and Chamath. I don't know if you heard of those guys, but we're buds. You came to visit. We hang out across the country. It's been fun. Um, so now you're doing this stuff, consultant. Now you're the director of this, managing director of this team, or whatever the title is. And then, but going back a little bit, I know that just to give people a little that don't know you a flavor of like, where you come from, what's your shtick. Um, you're from Indiana, right? Like, where Indiana University is.
Yeah, I was born in Bloomington, Indiana. Grew up there and went to Indiana for undergrad and grad school.
And your parents are both professors, or one of your parents is a professor?
Well, they're both retired now. My mom was a lecturer in the psychology department, and my dad was director of the accounts payable department at
Respect.
IU. He started out as an actuary, and then got tired of commuting to Indianapolis, and so he had to switch career paths and got into accounting.
Did you like growing up in like a college town? Is there a thing?
I don't think I really knew that was a thing until I actually got to college. Um, but now I appreciate it more. It College towns are nice.
What's good about them?
I think the concentration of really smart people, the concentration of interesting things to do. There's always concerts and shows and festivals to go to. Bloomington has a really nice international food scene that's uncommon for small town Indiana. So this is a lot of the benefits of a big
Hmm.
city in a small town.
Melting pot, cultural melting pot. You get those like you got some good Senegalese, which you got. You got that East African food. You got some of that. You got Asian. You got Thai food.
Yeah, all of the above.
That's awesome.
I really like the Thai food in Bloomington. Siam House is the
Siam House, hot tip. I like that. Um, and so you got a degree in informatics, bachelor in Indiana, because like I'm sure probably you got to go for free since your dad was working there full time or whatever.
I wish I got to go for free.
Really? They didn't pay for that? A lot of these
I got a
universities.
discount.
Oh, that's a bummer. That's stupid.
Yeah,
Did
I
your parents
actually.
pay for your college education?
Oh no, they didn't pay it. They
Why?
didn't pay a single dollar. Well, you got 4 kids.
They just couldn't
It's
afford to pay for
yeah.
all of them.
There's no money to pay for college tuition when there's 4 kids and yeah, my mom hadn't well, my dad always had a job, but my mom didn't always have a job when we were growing up. So
What does she lecture in? Which department? Psychology?
yeah, psychology.
Does she have a degree in that? Is she like a psychologist?
Yeah, she has a PhD in psychology. Her academic focus was gender studies.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
Yeah, one thing she studied that I know that she studied, I'm sure other things, was like middle school is, I think, a critical time for girls when they tend to drift away from like the hard sciences,
Uh-huh.
engineering, math, those types of things. So she kind of studied why that happens. I don't know what the results were. You'd have to talk to her.
Maybe you can get me like a referral as another podcast. That'd be fun. But was there a thing in your household like, oh, let's education is important, like go get a go to college, go or even PhD is important or no?
Yeah, education is important in my family. There was never really a discussion about whether or not
It was
any of
just like
us would go to
assumed
college. It was
you
just something
do,
that you do.
so,
It wasn't really I didn't even think about it.
and you could study whatever.
Yeah. My parents always, so I went, going back even further, they put us in Montessori for preschool and kindergarten. So Montessori is, I don't know if your listeners are familiar, but basically
Tell us.
kids are given free reign to choose their own adventure and teach themselves what they're interested in. At least at the preschool level, lots of like self-directed
Yeah,
learning stations all over the classroom, kids running around all over the place, very little structure. And style of parenting is that style of education is, it basically like encompasses how we were parented. Just, all parents, very supportive parents, um, to whatever we wanted to do, and even
interesting.
like very little direction on what they think we should do. So it's very much like follow your own path.
That's cool. But a feeling of like, we're there for you. We got your back if you need it.
Yeah, sure, for sure.
And so you ended up doing informatics. Why?
Well, I started out in my first semester. I actually didn't go to IU. I went to Miami of Ohio. I was studying mathematics.
Is it a beach town?
Is it a beach town
Yeah, Miami of Ohio.
in Ohio? It's the middle of nowhere, Ohio,
I know.
like pretty close to Cincinnati, right across the Indiana border. It's 2.5, 3 hours from
Just some
Bloomington.
local nearby school.
Yeah, I mean it's a well-regarded school.
It's a well-regarded school.
It's a it's a public school, but they act a lot like a private
Got it.
school.
It's just smaller, maybe smaller.
Yeah, it's fairly small. Town of like 3,000 people. I don't know, 6 or 7,000 students at the time. But anyway, it wasn't a good fit for me. One thing, it was too expensive. But so over winter break, I was just kind of like thinking about if I was going to go back to IU, what would I do? Do I still want to do math, or basically just like looking at the webpage, all the different things they had to offer. And I think my mom actually found that they had started a school of informatics like a year or two before.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea what that was, but I'd always been, throughout high school, I was really into computers, like made websites, computer programs, any class in high school that had to do with computers and programming. I was into it. So yeah, so I transferred back to IU and started out at the School of Informatics in the spring semester.
What do you think about cryptocurrency?
What do I think about cryptocurrency?
That's
I
right.
found out about Bitcoin, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners did, when it was, I don't know, single digit
Mm-hmm.
dollar amounts per Bitcoin.
That would
I
be a pretty
regret
good return at this point.
I regret that I didn't buy a single Bitcoin when I first found out about it. I think cryptocurrency is
Like, what do you think is actually something that's going to be a fundamental change in our society? Is it, is the pricing a big bubble? Is it like, oh no, like it's, what is the end game, or what would, I mean, I've been trying to understand it, and I have like some understanding of it, but definitely not the math underneath, and I'm sure most people won't be able to understand the math underneath. Uh, Decentralized ledger, blockchain. Is it? Are we living in something like the internet, not in the 1990s, where just it's happening, but most people don't understand it until it really becomes a thing we can all interact with, or that's one way, an optimistic way I like to look at it, at least. What do you think about it all?
Well, I'm not a cryptocurrency expert
No,
by
but
any
just as
means.
just a person,
I think we're
you're
in
a person.
I think there are good use cases for cryptocurrency and blockchain. They aren't as blockchain in particular. I think there are fewer realistic use cases that will go anywhere in the near term future. But I think cryptocurrency is kind of like the web in the 90s, where it's so new that people don't really know that it's just too new right now. That it's going to take cryptocurrency wave 2 or wave 3, like we had
Mm,
web 2.0 before
I like that.
really the widespread use of crypto and blockchain happens. So I don't think
So,
Bitcoin
so
is
what
the
do you bet
long-term
on now?
solution.
Bitcoin is not. You're not a Bitcoin maximalist or whatever they're called.
No, I don't think so. I think Bitcoin now is a little bit like buying collectibles, like tulips or beanie babies or something.
Oh man, the tulip market is just a great example of this rush. Um, you gotta exit at the right point, then you're still golden, really. But interesting.
But it's like any kind of currency. It depends on people's faith in it. But what is any currency is like backed by the labor that you can exchange it for, the goods and services that you can exchange that currency for.
Exactly.
So if Bitcoin is very useful if you can buy what you want to buy with it. But I think mostly people right now are just trying to turn Bitcoin into more dollars.
They're speculating for sure.
Yeah. So it's not really
This
it doesn't really act as a currency.
It's an asset class in some way, shape, or form. There's this one that I just came across, a recommendation from a Dan Minsky, though that's not relevant, called Chia, where it's the guy who created BitTorrent, Bram Cohen. He's developing this new protocol, Chia network, and instead of using up like cycles to do like work, proof of work or whatever, it's going to do proof of space and use up like storage space on your computer, which in his mind is like that we are over provisioned. We have a lot more extra storage.
Hmm.
And it's like, so we can just use that instead of using CPU cycles, which basically, is turns into energy, which is not green. So this will be more green. They're still testing it, but it looks, it got my attention a little bit. I was going to install it, try to turn it on, see what
Interesting.
happens.
Hadn't heard about it.
Yes, and that's the thing is I want to hear about things I haven't heard of and get it now versus like chase whatever is happening in cryptocurrency right now. So I think if you were in a long time ago, then you can just keep holding forever or hold until you're comfortable selling. Maybe sell half, and then if you're not in now with Bitcoin this weekend topping 60K a Bitcoin, I'm not sure. I don't know. It just seems kind of a little folly to just get in there now with your life savings.
As a speculative purchase, I think yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not gonna buy Bitcoin now.
Agreed.
I'll just continue to regret I didn't buy it 5 years
Exactly,
ago.
and that's okay too. You don't have to ride every wave. Like as long as you know, so on the topic of kind of, I know you're pretty good at. I know we shifted away from informatics, but for a second, but I think this is interesting. Like I know you're pretty into the financial independence kind of living a lifestyle and thinking about um, financial things and like personal finance. That's the words I'm looking for. Personal finance.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. What is your approach? Do you have a simple approach? Do you have like let's get a lot of NFTs, like whatever's the hottest new thing, let's buy that up, or do you have any for people that don't understand personal finance or are just haven't been able to haven't been able to learn about it or haven't had the time to take care of it. If you're just starting out, what's your approach to it?
Yeah, I think financial independence and personal finance are two slightly different things. But
What's personal? Okay, tell us your personal finance approach.
personal finance, I would recommend,
People read some website.
well, like research different approaches to personal finance. Um,
Hmm.
I like when I was first starting to earn a salary, I started out with, I think, this guy named Ramit Sethi. I Will Teach You to Be Rich was his book,
Okay.
and that was a good way to start. It
Well,
was basically all about automating and taking the decision making out of your finances as much as possible. And I think that's a good place for anyone to start.
is that
But go ahead.
is that about investment or also spending?
It was mostly about spending.
How do you do that? How do you automate your spending?
Well, it was like simple stuff like automate automate your bill pays,
Hmm.
um, automate your splitting up your paycheck into your savings versus
Got
your
it.
investing versus your fun money kind of thing.
Yeah.
Very very simple stuff, but I think that can be a good place to start.
Basically, you're kind of creating a budget, and you're sticking to that budget in a way. If you automate that splitting of stuff and automating the stuff, makes sense to me.
Yeah, just reduce the amount of decisions you have to make about money. It can be very fatiguing to make a lot of decisions. But then another thing that I learned from that was that it's okay to spend money on things that are important to you as an individual. I mean, it's not productive to try to spend as little as possible at all costs. In the long run, that's very hard to do.
How do you judge what's important to you? What's important? What do you like spending money on?
I have way more computers than I really would need. I like spending money on technology. I
Hmm.
like spending money on sports and fitness, travel. Um, I some kinds of entertainment. I don't really value like really fancy food. Like fine dining is not super important to me, so I don't spend a lot of money on that kind of thing.
But you like food.
I do like food. Who doesn't like food?
Food is great.
Yeah.
It's Pie Day. Oh, happy Pie Day! I've been
Happy
thinking
Pie
about the
Day.
topic all day for this podcast. This is the first one we're back for in a while. I'm like, happy Pie Day. I almost bought a pie, but I just feel like it's really would be bad for my diet. Because like even if I could give away a couple of pieces, I would still be left with a lot of pie that would be in my fridge, and I would just eat it.
There's got to be a pie shop around that just sells one slice.
Yeah, I can get. That might be something I do later today is get a pie slice.
Buying a single piece of pie in my head is not a good financial decision because you can buy a whole pie for
A lot
you
cheaper.
know a lot cheaper per slice. But if you think about the overall cost to your health and
To my diabetes bill, yeah.
the idea that just spending less money to get the utility that you want, buying one slice of pie is probably a good personal finance decision.
Do you like to pick stocks for retirement, or do you just like do index funds?
Pretty much all index funds.
What do you like the total market?
I don't even really like go into it in that level of detail. Like in my 401k, I just kind of went for an index fund that was the lowest possible cost. I think reducing costs of investments in the long run is probably more productive than trying to pick the exact right mix of things to
Mm,
buy.
just like low management fees on the funds, kind of,
Yeah, that's what I generally try to optimize
which I
for.
think is smart. And then just keep stuffing that pre-tax money or whatever until you're done.
Sure.
It is might not be the most flashy, but it is I think probably the best way. And I wish I started doing that when I was like in my first job out of college or whatever. At Deutsche. I did put some money into that 401k, and then I um, took it out, paid the penalty because I was doing my startup days. I had no cash, so I had to do it. But I wish I left it in there. Figure out a different way to live off money, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But also wish I would always like at least put in the max of the tax advantage thing every year, and I was just doing the max to the match. And I could have altered my lifestyle instead of going out and getting takeout in New York City all the time, which is expensive. I could have altered my lifestyle to, I think, put more money in the 401k. And so that's a lesson I learned. I'm still barely learning it. I'm not sure I even took full advantage of last year. So, but this year I'm determined to follow the right path and take advantage of all my tax advantage accounts, IRA, the 401k, or whatever. And I'm very grateful and lucky that I am in a position to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the long run, time in the market, minimizing expenses, trusting in the market on average to do well in the long run is all
Yeah,
you really need to do.
I can bet on the United States. What are you gonna do when you retire?
Oh, good question. I don't know. It depends on when I retire. I hope I would be healthy enough to do some long distance trips, like bicycle trips or hiking, things like that.
Tell me about like long distance bicycling. What's that like?
Well, I don't do as much long distance bicycling now as I used to. I'd like to get back into it someday. But when I was in high school and college, yeah, bicycling was my sport. And yeah, so I used to do um, trips every
Like a
summer.
Tour de France?
Well, I've raced a little bit in the past, but I'm not especially fast. More like touring,
Got it. Just like
seeing
chill,
things, going from one place to another. I
using
used
the
to do,
bicycle.
yeah, 2 or 3 weeks at a time is the longest trips that I've ever done.
You would like have a backpack with all your stuff as you're biking.
Well, most of the trips that I've done were organized, like
It would have
youth
a
group.
car follow you.
Well, you can do it that way, but it was more like an organized group, like 50, 60 people with kind of like youth group stuff. Ride from one place to the next, and we didn't have to carry anything, so that was
Who carried all the stuff?
like a moving truck
Okay, that's
with
what I
shelves
mean.
built into it.
Yeah, so there was a car that had your stuff. Well, and do you guys camp or do you stay in like hotels?
Yeah, so the program is called Decycles Indiana, based in Bloomington. Norm Hoos and Cricket Hoos have been running the program for a
Shout out
long
to
time.
who?
Yeah, the Hooses are a great family, and yeah, they do a lot for the community. So but it's as I said, youth group, like church based youth development program. So we would stay at churches along the way,
Oh,
which
that's nice.
minimized the cost a lot, and it, got kids exposed to different communities.
I see. That's pretty cool. How many hours a day would you bike?
Usually averaged 80 or 90 miles. So that would take, with breaks, that would take 7, 8, 9 hours.
I saw a tweet recently from like Naval, who I like. Spend all your time learning, earning, exercising, and relaxing. And I think the bike is cool because you're kind of learning about new places and you're exercising. I've been doing a lot of walks. That's kind of my, and you can listen to podcasts these days. But yeah, I think it just feels like you have to move the body a little bit every day. So the
Yeah,
biking is kind of fun to do
super
that way.
important to move the body. I enjoy biking. Nowadays I just do half an hour long indoor rides or ride down to the state park that's near us. It's been a while since I've been in good enough shape to do a really long ride.
You have to be in good shape to do that?
Yeah. Like a 100-mile ride at the Century is kind of the cycling equivalent of a marathon.
Oh, I
Although
see.
I ran a marathon a few years ago, and that was much harder than riding 100 miles.
Yeah.
So you got to train for at least a couple months to do a 100-mile bike ride and be relatively comfortable doing it.
Well, and also if you're doing 80, 90 miles a day, that's a lot for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, doing long distance trips, you definitely want to train for it, but also you train yourself into it. Like the third day of a 3-week trip is the hardest, and then it gets easier after that usually.
Interesting. Shout out bicycling. Do you have any what's your favorite bicycle brand? Do you have one?
I don't have I don't think I have any particular favorite. I have been looking at Salsa bicycles lately because they have some interesting adventure gravel bikes for bike packing and touring. But I have 4 bikes in the garage, so I don't need another bike right now.
Seems reasonable. What do you think makes so you're in the consulting game, have been in the consulting game and successful at it for the past how many years? A lot of time the topic comes up, oh, like from just regular folks, like, oh, I'm working in this job. How do I become a consultant? I mean, it's in the healthcare IT world, that's obviously very prevalent. A lot of healthcare organizations have full-time staff. They also have staff augmentation consultants that come in. What do you think makes a good consultant? Or someone that's a butt in the seat, but it's not just a butt; it's a very good butt.
Good question, Pavel.
You don't know.
I'm not prepared for all these excellent questions that you have.
Well, my ego likes that you think my questions are excellent, so that's halfway there.
So if
I
you
mean,
want
you
to be a
must have an
consultant,
opinion, huh?
yeah, if you want to be a consultant,
Yeah.
I think the most important quality of a consultant is just the unwillingness to be stopped by not knowing things or not having a solution in advance. I'm always, when we're hiring to our team, I'm always looking for people who have demonstrated the ability to figure things out, solve problems that they didn't know how to solve, or maybe even no one knew how to solve before. I think that's the number one thing, to cultivate that curiosity and
Yeah, I like how you
ability
say,
to.
yeah, you said willingness, which is different than ability, but I think that it goes hand in hand because, like, I think a lot of people have the ability to do it, but they're somehow mentally blocked. This that willingness to be like, okay, no one's done this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna just keep trying to figure it out until I do figure it out, and not like you said, the willingness to not stop. I like that, or the unwillingness to stop, whichever way you said that.
Yeah, it's. I think getting into consulting is a bet on yourself, and it's very much an entrepreneurial kind of founder mentality.
Right.
You're not necessarily starting up a new company, although you could be if you're doing 1099 work. But you're betting on yourself to be able to look at problems that you've never seen before, that other people have decided are too challenging for them to know how to solve, and that you're willing to bet on yourself to being able to, figure things out, and then you get paid for it.
Yeah, I think sometimes you just, it's like that. There's memes about this all the time. It's like, oh, looking for 10 years of, um, you know, AWS experience. AWS has only existed for like 2 years, like stupid stuff like that, where there's always like, I'm not saying you should be. It's a lot of time people are trying to recruit someone that already has solved this very particular problem, and they can be like, oh, because that gives them trust in the situation. Like, okay, they already faced the same challenge before. And I think as a consultant, to become like a top tier, you have to be able to say, I think, be open and like, I don't know, that's what you were saying. Like, okay, I know you're looking for this one guy or gal that can do these 4 or 5 things together, but I haven't done them, but I've done X, Y, and Z, and I think I can figure it out from there. And like having the confidence in your skill set and in your communication to do that. But I think if you're trying to, and a lot of times people are trying to say, okay, how do I become a consultant right away? I think it again boils down to what you said. It's a bet on yourself. It's a bet that you can go into an organization, create value, and build a reputation that continues to do that. And I think, a great way to start is by being an organization already and just generating value at a company that you're already at, building your, AWS, Azure, whatever skill set, whatever certification. Obviously, Epic is like what we're familiar with. A lot of my guests, my audience, because that's the business we were in. But I think it extends to really, I think it's good idea for anybody. Like, get in, just figure it out, learn the stuff in your organization. You learn the Salesforce so that you can then become a Salesforce consultant. So I think there is advice there for people that really want that. But another thing I hear a lot, which I think you can lend some expertise on, is people want to not become consultants, but they want to get into data analytics. And so data analytics probably came natural to you because you had an informatics degree. You went to work at Epic, and was it in the Clarity team, which is like their database team?
Yep, I was on the Clarity team, and it was really only because I had a class where I learned what a SQL database was in,
I know, right?
in
It's
undergrad.
hilarious. Today I think here's my I was going to write an article. I'm going to tell you what I'm curious what you think. I was going to say, whatever, if you want to get into data analytics, a couple of things. That's a really smart move because there's just a never-ending demand and levels of sophistication for the desire for us to use data to, during this pandemic, all you heard was data, 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 and everybody wants to do that. And so I think if you're a professional in the business side and IT side, whatever side, but you don't know what data is and you're afraid of it, just learn SQL. And then using your whatever else experience you have, you add the SQL piece, and now you can have a career in quote unquote data. This is my like practical advice for people that want to get into the analytics field.
I think
SQL is
that's great
easy.
advice. Great advice. I would add learn SQL and learn how to model data, learn how to make an entity relationship diagram.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, we're talking about, data comes in tables usually. A table is like a spreadsheet that you can imagine if you're never familiar with like how data works, and you can kind of link these spreadsheets together to really get the full picture. So you have all your orders in one spreadsheet, you have all your customers in another spreadsheet, you have all your products in another spreadsheet, you can link it together. So that relationship linking is what you're describing. And if you understand how that works and you understand how SQL works, you become quite dangerous in being able to start to solve questions with data. And then you build Power BI, Tableau, whatever tool and thing you can want to build on top. I think always Excel is a great way to start with some pivot tables. Long live the pivot table.
Yeah, I think the difference between someone who is an analytics like expert and someone who is just using data to answer questions is how fast you can do it, and how anyone can answer the same kinds of questions that you could answer with a SQL query with fumbling through and
Right.
collecting data and wrangling data in Excel. Like you can, up to a certain amount of data, you can literally do it both ways. But if you're doing it the analytics way with SQL, correctly modeled data, what you can do scales infinitely bigger, and you can work a lot faster
Yeah.
than someone who's trying to do it all manually in Excel. But the key is you got to be able to ask good questions, help other people ask good questions, and figure out what data you need to answer those questions. That's the secret sauce to analytics, the business of analytics. I think it's not really that complicated.
The smartest things are never that complicated. So it is to ask the right questions, help people ask the right questions, figure out what data you need to answer those questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
I think that's it.
I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think I'm going to keep that in mind as I embark on my next contract as a high-end data warehousing consultant. I really do you. At what point do you think our jobs can go away? And what I mean by that is, like, why can't someone just ask the AI to do it? Everything, link the data, clean it, and then tell me exactly what the answer is to my business question of how many widgets do I need in this location based on everything that I know about this widget, which is, let's say it's an MRI machine to keep it in healthcare, whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean the tools are getting better. You can do a lot.
20 years.
There are fewer and fewer, very slowly but surely, there are fewer requirements, fewer needs to write custom SQL code from scratch. There are tools that can make that a lot easier, a lot faster, and to some extent remove the programmer altogether. But you and I do is, like, I think we stay at the leading edge of what is possible with
Right.
technology. And if we ever aren't needed anymore, it will be because we have general AI and no one needs to do anything anymore.
Well, yeah, totally. Exactly. Like, I'm not worried about either of us having a job if we want one. But I mean, proposal writing. Let's see an I do that. Let's see an AI deal with a proposal out of scratch. You know what I mean? But I actually maybe probably can with that whatever the newest thing was that was like writing text like a human. But yeah, I don't know, just idea that I just feel like there's a lot of things that are rudimentary that are being done, and not just across, I think, any business, healthcare included, and like still hasn't been a big breakthrough in having the computer really handle it. And I thought that something like a Google partnership with whoever they partner with, and like Haven Health or Amazon or Microsoft, these, and now I saw, Providence started this thing, which is a huge conglomerate, like a collective of data. I forgot what it's
Truveta.
called.
Yep.
Truveta, which is, basically their mission is, oh, we want to make things better and solve all questions with data. And I think it's a good approach. They're going to try to get data from all these institutions and actually try to, I think, model it out for the machine learning stuff to work on it, which I think has been a huge challenge. And let's see if these guys can do it because they got some tech talent behind them. But Um, yeah, I just thought like it's got it just, or maybe Epic themselves can do it, or maybe one of these other EHR companies. This next level push. And what am I predicting it? I don't know. To me, it feels like it's everybody keeps trying to bite the healthcare apple, but they're not. They haven't been able to really. Even these big guys haven't been able to really do anything yet. That is, in my mind, material like materially solves the problem. So there's still opportunity for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, healthcare data collection isn't designed for enabling research by default. It's designed for keeping track of individual people and their individual health and billing for services. And those are different from collecting data to perform research and to generate insights on how to care for different conditions and how to prevent adverse events from happening.
I also think it would be cool when we get like just a stream of data for a human being. Like we'll get all their full genome sequence. We'll get like their heart rate, their blood pressure all the time, right? I mean, I think that will be an interesting thing as well. There's gonna be a lot of money put into trying to keep us healthy and living for a long time because, like, obviously, I think so. And no shortage of jobs. What
Yeah,
do
I
you
think the
think?
important thing is just to stay on the edge of, to stay familiar with what the technology is capable of and how to use whatever exists to its fullest extent, and to keep pushing to make sure that you're always involved in the leading edge of technology. And if that's what, if you want to solve the most interesting problems, you got to be on the leading edge of what technology can do.
Sure. I mean, I agree with that statement. I also feel like I'm nowhere near the leading edge because I don't. I guess it's a level like I don't need to understand TensorFlow in Python to be able to use that thing. Call the code, import TensorFlow, put it in, which I might be able to do, versus like actually designing and understanding the core mechanics myself. I probably can't. Um, I have another question about genetics. I'm curious.
Well, I don't know anything about genetics. What do I know about genetics?
I
Let's
just
try it.
think let's try it. So it's like ATCG over and over again, and it's like billions of letters. I think if you uncompress it, it goes to like the sun or something. Your code, you write it down, uncompress it. All good. It feels like right now to become like a real bioinformatics engineer, which are the people that are using like computers and SQL and Python and data science to look at these ATCG patterns to be able to like identify diseases, solve diseases, etc. You need like a PhD in bioinformatics. I have a feeling. I mean, there's a super high demand for those professionals right now. I have a feeling that we're gonna be able to transition to less than a PhD doing valuable work in this space. I think it potentially can coincide with more and more academic medical sensors getting sequencing installed and sequencing people in mass. I mean, what do you think? Should we all become bioinformatics engineers? Can I become a bioinformatics engineer without getting a PhD in biology? I know you're not. I know you don't have any expertise to answer this question, but go ahead and try.
Well, I have spent a lot of time around physiologists,
Right.
and the skill set or the interest of the human body and how the human body functions and how various biological processes function is often a very different mindset and very different way someone's brain works from the ability to wrangle large amounts of data and make large amounts of data usable by computers.
Interesting.
So
Yes.
I think, and where I have often operated in my career is the intersection of the people who really, really care about the technology and the programming and building software that can do things for that sake, and the people who are not technically savvy and are really just have the expertise in that biological concept or financial concept or whatever it is.
Right.
And in the middle there is where I have operated. And I
Same.
think that all of those types of people is a continuum. The continuum there'll always be a space there. So I think in bioinformatical engineering, there's probably, I bet if you actually tried to get one of those jobs, you would be able to wow them with your technical analytics expertise, and then the biology expertise would be less important.
Yeah, that's kind of my theory, and it'll be interesting. And I think like kind of what you said is you need the people over here, the hardcore programmers, building tools that people in the middle can rely on to do something valuable for the people that are so far removed but really understand the business or biological concept, right? And right now these guys are in the middle guys. These high-end programmers have to sit in the middle because I think maybe the tool set is not as developed or just it's not there quite yet. I don't know if that was truly happening in any like in other industries like what I imagine, like let's say healthcare hospitals. They at some point they had some sort of old database system, and probably there was some kind of small higher end programmer IT team. I'm not sure, but I think here in the biology, I have a couple of bioinformatics friends, and they're just telling me like, biology can be very, very complex. But I think, thinking about what's coming next, I think there's going to be a big biotech push. I'm curious about bioinformatics. You can learn anything on YouTube, so I turned that on. But I don't know if 2 hours of YouTube make me a professional.
Well, I hardly know anything about bioinformatics.
It's interesting.
I would imagine, are there commercial tools for dealing with
it's like
large
all open
amounts of
source
genomics data?
academic stuff, I think mostly open source academic stuff, plus the actual company like Illumina, which makes the sequencers, they'll put out software as well.
Yeah, if there's a SQL server for genomics, there might be. I don't know about it.
I don't know.
I think if Pavel or Jacob wants to get into bioinformatics, it'd be to learn everything there is to know about the equivalent of SQL Server for genomics.
I like that idea, actually. I'm going to put it to Google after we're done. Is there a SQL Server for genomics? I'm not even kidding. I think that's cool. Okay.
Do I get to ask you questions, or is just you asking me questions?
And yeah, you can ask me questions.
I don't know if I have any questions.
But now you don't have the ability to do it.
Well, here's here. I'm gonna like rewind if like 10
please,
minutes.
Sure.
So you mentioned to the audience that we kind of built this team of analytics consultants over a few years.
Yeah, Tegria Blue Tree, love it.
Yeah, and I'm Blue Tree, a Tegria company. So my question for you is,
yeah,
when you were doing that, like, what was your approach? What were for people trying to build remote teams that are really great in the analytics space? How do you do that?
Yeah, and I think it doesn't have to be in the analytics space. I think just if you're trying to build a remote team, period, is where I would have advice. I was taught management under the tutelage of the great Wayne Achterberg. May he be the great Wayne that he is. And he learned how to manage people out of an olive garden in somewhere in Wisconsin. So this is where this is the it's when you're like a Zen Buddhist, you got to tell people like where you learn your Zen from. So that's mine. That was my thing. But I think what worked, what Wayne did right, what I did right, was you wanted to just basically hire good people and then support them and give them as much autonomy as possible and kind of train them to be, in your image to some extent. Um, and make a lot of the time we would hire people actually from healthcare organizations who were not consultants at the time. And I found that for those folks, it could be a hard transition because it's like it's psychology. It's these consultants, they come in, they have a consultant badge, they must be experts. I'm not an expert. I'm just a person working in a healthcare organization. So you just had to take them and give them some reassurance. And I felt like just some people just knew they were good, so you just let them loose, and you just gotta give them that, like, yes, you can do it. Just figure it out. And here are some team members you can rely on. And I kind of use that approach on everybody. The thing is, it's not magical. Not everybody can actually do it. And so what happens then, I think, especially in a remote setting where in a remote setting, I always feel like it might be a little longer to tell because you're not there all the time if the person is good or not, if they're generating value, but eventually you could tell. And they can't really hide it. And so, especially in a remote setting, you have to give people, I think, that autonomy because, I mean, first of all, I think if you want someone to be good, if they're good, you want them to grow, you got to give them that autonomy. Like, there's never like, oh, you have to be online at 8, you have to be offline at 5. It's like figure it out with your client, make sure you're doing good stuff. You know what's good. That's why you got hired. Sometimes you make bad hiring decisions, and then you'd have to, you know, deal with it by developing a performance improvement plan. And if the person wasn't improving enough, then they got fired. I think that's okay. Um, so yeah, I think it comes to the point of trust. I think I led with the idea of, I mean, a lot of transparency, like sharing all the numbers of what we're doing, how we're doing it, how is our business going, what are our sales, and then a little bit of a vision, which is like, oh, I think cloud is huge. I think data warehousing is huge. We want to be a data engineering shop. So, hey, you think you're just a report developer, but actually you're a data engineer because you're developing this report, you're really developing a whole new way of looking at this data. It's a data pipeline. It's like different words for different things, but for the same stuff. So I think that was part of it. And then, growing pains, just like throwing people into uncomfortable situations, being there for them. I think the way your parents were there, like you described it growing up, like, oh, just figure it out, like do what you want to do. And that tended to work, I think, well. And then I think the transparency piece is very important because we're remote. Having happy hours is nice. Getting together with people is nice. I think having us, keeping your ego in control is good. Um, those are some of my tips. I do like building teams. I think it is a fascinating exercise. And something Wayne taught me was like, what you enjoy kind of seeing someone taking a challenge on and then overcoming it and getting better.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of so that was pretty cool. How
A
do you
lot of trust.
separate? How do you separate like work and personal life? Like, do you? I think a lot of people, myself included, have a lot of identity wrapped up into like the work we do, which is like I just took a 2 month break basically, and I wasn't working. And who am I? What am I up to? Like, it's funny how a job can really fill that identity for you. I have a friend who has been on a high end, super smart guy. Well, had a job at a big financial institution. Now is kind of doing his own thing or trying to figure it out, and ha- having some issues like with that identity of like, oh, I'm no longer a Deutsche Bank banker.
Hmm.
How do you think about that? How do you separate in your mind like I'm a title, I am not a title? Like, do you ever think about that?
I don't think a whole lot about that, honestly.
That's because you're just completely trying to grinding it through the job and thinking about how do I make my numbers.
I I don't know. I didn't. That's not where I thought you were going with the question. I was prepared to respond like, I have a physical space in my house
Okay, no, I mean, I
where
think that's
work
part of it.
happens,
Yeah.
and it's right behind me. It's right over there, and yeah. So it's just when I go to work every morning, I'm focused on getting that job done, and when it's over, I try to switch it off as much as I can,
But it's
which
still
is
hard, I'm sure.
it's hard. It's hard. Like the brain's always going.
But
Yeah, I don't know.
what about imagine that, boom, you discover that somehow by accident you managed to buy 200 bitcoins. You didn't even realize it. You were sleepwalking. And now, like, you're like, oh shit, now I'm rich now. I don't have to work anymore. And you retire from your role. Yeah, I mean, I think you probably do other things to make you happy, and maybe that be part of your identity. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think a job is a big part of our identity? Do you think Rachel thinks of herself as a teacher a lot, or it's interesting? I don't know. It's what is identity anyway? Because there is no I
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's been a long time since I've had the opportunity to need
to reflect like that.
to reflect like that. Yeah.
You got to get you a sabbatical
I would love to have a sabbatical. I've never had a problem filling
time.
my time when I'm not working with things that I want to do. Grad school is awesome. Did so many bike rides in grad school. Um,
Yeah,
got to
grad school.
coach a cycling team for a few years.
That's
So
cool.
I would probably I think my identity is
Cycling.
maybe not cycling, but like less healthcare and more team builder coach who can get in the weeds and work alongside anyone.
He's a player coach. Everybody heard it here first.
Player coach.
He's a player coach. I like that.
That's more my identity. So I would so I would just find a different way to you know work
Do
on
that.
other things with that kind of role.
I like that. I like the identity of mad genius because that just feels like it lets me get away with things. No one's gonna poke the mad genius. He's mad. He's mad. I tell you.
But not all of
Are
them.
you vaccinated? Are you ready to party?
No, not yet. I am
Are
looking
you
forward
soon
to.
in line?
No, in Colorado they're supposed to
But you're a
let
healthcare worker.
everyone. Well, I'm not in Colorado. It's, are you a healthcare worker who sees patients?
What if you could be exposed to seeing patients?
Trying to follow the rules as best I can. But I hope to have a vaccine by May. I think that's realistic, given what's going on with vaccine production and
Oh yeah,
like
we're rocking it. I think we're
yeah
doing well. I think we're gonna be out of this thing hopefully in time to make sure. And then we got to send all those vaccines over to Brazil so they can, because I hear they're producing a lot of new variants or whatever. I
yeah
don't know.
I don't know.
Just because it's not. I mean, that's what I read. What do I know?
Yeah, everyone needs to get vaccinated for
Just
sure.
vaccinate, please. Get the vaccine. We want this pandemic to be over. We want to travel. Booked a trip to Europe later in the year, towards the end of the year. Hopefully that goes through. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, we're doing a little trip next year or next week
Where
to
to?
for spring break to see the Black Canyon of the Gunnison near Montrose, Colorado, and then over to see the Great Sand Dunes National Park.
What's the first thing?
It's a national park. It's a relatively unknown national park where they've got these like almost sheer canyons
Oh,
in the mountains, the western part of Colorado. You can drive all the way down to the bottom, I think. We'll see how the weather is, but there's a road all the way down to the bottom.
very cool.
So I'm hoping that they have some vaccines in those remote remote parts of Colorado.
Oh,
Then
you just
next week
show
I
up, and they're
might
like,
be able
hey,
to find an appointment.
I like the idea. Top park recommendations for people that haven't been to national parks.
Well, and from in Colorado, which is where I'm most familiar with national parks, um, Rocky Mountain National Park is you've got to go if you've never been there. There's a reason it's so popular.
It's just
It's
beautiful.
fantastic. Yeah,
Never been there.
yeah. I like Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. If you like caves,
Is it because the mammoths remains were found there, or is it just really big?
it's a big cave just because it's
Okay,
big. It's mammoth.
nice.
I've been to Arches in Moab. Arches is Canyonlands is good. Arches is nice.
You're a big canyon cave guy.
I like caves and canyons. Yeah,
Kind of cool to explore that.
I've never been to Carlsbad. I'd like to go to Carlsbad someday.
We have caves in Carlsbad. I've heard that.
Carlsbad Caverns
Where
in New
are they?
Mexico,
Oh, oops.
not in Carlsbad, California. No, southeastern New Mexico.
So this is
Uh,
cool. You could be biking around all these places as part of your retirement lifestyle or whatever.
yeah, a lot of the national parks that I've seen were on bike trips. Went to Glacier, Redwoods National Park, Rocky Mountain. I don't think Rocky Mountain was on a bike trip.
Yellowstone?
Yeah, Yellowstone, Yosemite, saw those on bike trips. Death Valley National Park, saw that on a bike trip. It's a good place. It's a good way to see the country.
You just have to dress appropriately, I guess.
Yeah.
Any cool YouTube recommendations?
I don't know if I watched tech channels on YouTube, bicycling channels on YouTube. I don't know. I don't know if there's.
Interesting. That's the power of YouTube. You can just get whatever.
Yeah.
Like when you say tech channels, like people opening up like gadgets or building computers. What are they doing?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Mostly consumer
Consumer.
electronics kind of things.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess there's a lot out there.
I like to keep up to date. Keeps me from wanting to buy everything.
It keeps
If
you
I can
from.
just
At least
look
you
at
can
it.
see that. um, this PAVELCAST, and it's a beautiful traditional all over the place PAVELCAST has a recurring segment called Hot Tips. I don't know if you ever listened to any of the episodes.
I have listened to PAVELcast.
Nice. We love subscribe, please. Subscribe. 5 stars. Hot tips. It's time for hot tips. This is where our guests can give any tip they want that they consider to be, at least warm, if not hot. And I know you would just give me recommendations for things, but it can be anything. It can be a
Hmm.
book, a food, a mantra, a Twitter follow, a cryptocurrency, a TV show, a coffee, whatever you want. It can be multiple if you have like little ones. Anything you come across in the past few weeks, months, where you're like, oh, that's
We
cool.
were talking about personal finance earlier, very
Yes.
early on in the show. And I didn't mention this, but the tool that I use now is called You Need a Budget.
Okay, I heard of that.
Highly recommend it.
It costs money though, right? But it's still
It
worth it somehow.
costs $85 a year, but it's
Can you
completely
tell
worth it.
us more about it? Like why? What is it? What do you do with it? Is it on the phone?
It's a web app and they have phone apps. And it's a personal finance budgeting app, but the difference in mentality between You Need a Budget and like Mint or a lot of other budgeting apps is the idea that you assign a purpose for every dollar that you have, and you don't assume that you will have money coming in the future. So it's like if you don't have a dollar now, you can't afford it. So it very much requires you to have a mind to create this mindset and this plan of how am I going to have money in advance of wanting to buy things or needing to pay for things rather than floating your lifestyle with credit cards or
Mm.
based on paychecks that you'll have or may not have in the future.
But if I
So
don't have any paychecks coming up and I don't have any money, but I need stuff, how do I budget for that?
emergency fund,
I see.
build up an emergency fund. Yeah.
How
So
much?
you need a budget. If your audience
It,
is one to improve their personal finances, learn how to
it's
use an app
worth
like
the
Canva.
$85,
Yeah. Yeah.
which means if you tell me it's worth it, I believe you.
I wish it cost less, obviously, but yes, it's worth it's worth the money. Our like you can see your net worth. Like ours flat, and then we start using you need a budget to the
Really?
moon.
Yeah, my network has fluctuated depending on the stock market in the past few weeks, which is kind of painful to watch. But at least I have net worth. That's good.
That's good.
That's a good hot tip. And let's bring this goodie oldie back. It's the Elon Musk teleportation transportation phenomenon. So I have this machine here. Right now it's set up to transfer us to Lansing, but I can switch that around. And it's my good friend Elon Musk lets me use it once in a while. Basically, we can, using our minds, teleport into any place you've been to before and really experience it. So you just name the place, and I'm going to plug it in, and then we can go there.
We've been talking about bicycling a lot in this podcast.
That's great.
So, but one thing I haven't mentioned is the Little 500 bike race that happens at Indiana University every year.
Okay.
So I would say let's teleport there to Little 500 bike race.
Oh wow! Look at all these 500 bicycles. No. Tell me, like, what am I looking at here? Where are they
Well,
biking?
it's the world's greatest college weekend, Pavel.
What? That sounds
Yeah,
fun.
it got canceled last year and it's getting moved back this year. But go back a few years ago, and it's this race that was modeled off of the Indianapolis 500 car race, which is 500 miles.
And that's a just a cycle race, right? It's not like a.
The Indianapolis 500 is a car race.
But
Little 500
is
is a
it a
bike race.
circle?
Yeah, it's on a cinder track. It's a cinder track around the soccer field
Okay.
on IU's campus where the soccer team plays.
What's cinder?
Cinder is like ground up rocks.
Okay.
They're black. So it's like it can be dusty or it can be hard packed if it's a little bit damp. And there's two races. There's the men's race and the women's race. 33 teams in each race. There's 4 people on each team. And each team rides the exact same bicycle. Single speed.
Whoa.
Coaster brake. No shifting.
What's a coaster brake?
Coaster brake is like when you were a kid and you pedaled backwards to stop the bike.
Okay.
That's how the bikes work. There's no
brakes.
There's no hand brakes. So, and there's 2 bikes per team, but each team has 1 person out on the track at a time. So the race is going really fast. Riders will do 8, 10, maybe 15 lap sets. And the men race for 50 miles, 200 laps, and the women race for 25 miles, 100 laps. And the way that the bike gets exchanged from one rider to another is very interesting. You come in toward your pit, slam on the brakes, swing your leg around, slide the bike forward, and then the rider on your team who's taking the bike from you runs alongside it, grabs it by the handlebars, jumps on, gets up to speed as fast as possible to get back in the pack.
That's cool.
There's no event like it anywhere else. It's tremendously entertaining, except for the middle part of the men's race is usually pretty boring.
Why is it called the greatest college weekend? Just because is it a college sport?
It's all college undergrads doing the racing, but it's the greatest college weekend because it's the college parties.
The parties happen. Oh,
the parties are happening, but the part that I'm always most interested in is the bike racing.
Obviously. I'm a
Yeah.
bit of both.
So you have thousands of fans there sometimes
That's cool.
cheering you on. It's really fun.
Have you actually, did you do it?
I did race in it once,
Oh,
my
wow.
senior year of college. We put together a team, mostly just to have fun and to participate.
But
And
you had to do that switch of the bike.
yeah, you have to qualify for the race. So we did train pretty hard for it, and qualified for the race. We were one of the 33 teams. Yeah, and then
It's beautiful. I mean, I could
we
see everybody loud and the bikes going and the dust and like woof. And who's typically the top two, top winners? Is there like a really strong? Is there like a Duke basketball?
yeah, on the men's side, the cutters are the
Thought that was the
typically near the
Cutters.
top, and
Where are
then
they
some of
from?
the fraternity teams. Well, the cutters started out as an independent team that would, like, I think a fraternity or something got kicked off a campus, and their riders wanted to start a team, and they called it cutters. I think it was like a reference to, well, it's a reference to limestone, the limestone industry.
I see.
Local, it's actually not a very nice name for local Bloomington people, but you call local people from Bloomington cutters because they come from a long line of people who cut limestone for a living.
Gotcha.
But
Oh,
now it's kind
so
of like a term of endearment. Doesn't
okay, we'll just call you like a little Cuddy. But like, do they? So these are all teams from the Indiana area, from Bloomington, or no? It's
Well,
national.
they're all students at IU, but a
Oh,
lot.
I
Yeah,
gotcha.
IU is a diverse place. A lot of people are
Huge.
from everywhere, but
It's
uh,
not like a collegiate sport event. I was confused for a second.
it's an intramural event, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like an official college sport.
NCAA.
No.
It's more of a let's bike and party such, but it's cool. It's like an Indianapolis 500. It was really cool to see it. Whoop. Back. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty cool. Yeah, biking is interesting. I haven't really done too much of it myself. I need to, probably won't since I had the opportunity and I didn't take it. Yeah, I'm just afraid of crashing and killing myself. Maybe in a virtual world where it's easier.
Get yourself a Peloton.
What do you think about the Peloton? It seems like the biggest fad. Like, I can't believe that stock is worth so much money. Maybe I'm wrong.
I do indoor biking, but I not on a Peloton.
Do you use
It's
like
good
a?
exercise.
Is it a good iPad? Do you use like an iPad app to ride?
Yeah, I have an iPad hooked up like on a tripod in front of my bike, and the trainer that I have my bike hooked up to can communicate with the iPad, so you can control the resistance via apps on the iPad.
That's pretty cool. What about your butt? Does your butt hurt from like all that bike sitting? Yes.
You
Okay.
can. Got to get used to it.
Yeah, half an hour is not that bad.
Yeah, indoors it's,
No worries.
well, it's actually worse indoors because when you're outdoors, you're indoors, you don't coast, you don't really stand up.
Right.
So I usually do shorter rides indoors.
Yeah. The other thing, we're also linked by an Apple Watch connection. We can see each other's move calories and stuff, which is kind of fun.
We are. I don't spy on your calorie
I haven't looked in a while.
burning very often.
I used to be. It used to alert me every time all my Apple Watch friends like did something, but I've since canceled that. Um, this has been a great show. We have learned a lot about Jacob Sinex. We have learned how to become a better consultant. We have learned how to become a better analytics person. We have learned how to create your own teams, manage them remotely. We learned a lot about bicycling. We learned a little bit about Pavel. Um, I think crypto, check out Chia Network. Any last words from you?
No, I don't have any other words, Pavel. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on and getting that PAVELCAST bus rolling again. We'll be coming at you with lots more episodes soon. May the data always be with you. Data Pavel. Bye.